Welcome to Agents Growth Academy. I am your headmaster, Jim Schubert, and I am super excited to bring on a guest today who's going to talk about negotiating. And if you walk away with one thing that you didn't know about how to negotiate better for practically anything, then this show was helpful for you. Folks, another thing that I want to offer as something that could be helpful to you, and something that I know my guest is also going to talk about, we've discussed it off air and we have similar views on this, is that there's this concept that giving first before you even get anything in return is absolutely the way to go in business when you're trying to develop relationships with potential clients or vendors or anybody. You know, I get people all the time on LinkedIn pinging me and, hey, this is how I can help you. Hey, I think you need this. I'm like, oh, I don't even answer, quite honestly, because you're not bringing anything of value to me. So I've put together a cheat sheet of ways that you can give back in business before you even ask for anything in return. And if you go to agentsgrowthacademy.com/value, as in adding value, you can download that cheat sheet. And I've put some things in there that were examples that I got from other people who are much smarter than me in the industry. So it's not all my original ideas, but there are things that people are actually doing and actually seeing success with. That's what's important. So go to agentsgrowthacademy.com/value. And I think you will get a lot of value from that. So to our guest today, we're bringing on Mikelander. Mike, he's a phenomenal guy. He's a great character. We had fun talking off air. He has negotiated hundreds of deals over the last 24 years, well worth in excess of 450 million pounds. That's right. He's from the UK. He's been a procurement director for a private equity backed portfolio company, which is now worth 1 billion. It says dollars, so I'll go with dollars. He's a managing partner at one of the UK's largest procurement consultancies. He's sold businesses for large 7-figure sums, raised £6 million of debt financing to fund the acquisition and growth of a professional services and education business. He's provided negotiation support to clients that's helped them deliver gross margins in excess of 65%. He's negotiated the restructuring of a £4 million of creditors as part of a corporate turnaround, resulting in all creditors being paid out in full. He sold a high growth SEN schools business for a large 7-figure sum, and he's delivered procurement savings of more than £5 million. Folks, the man, the myth, the legend, Mikelander. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Hey, Jim, how are you?
I'm doing well, my friend. It's the end of your day. You got to be doing even better than me. I know you're about to go have a gin and tonic somewhere, right?
Exactly. Correct. Yeah. Thanks for inviting me. I love doing this. It's really, really good. And we had a great chat before we started. So yeah, I'm delighted to be here.
We did. And quite honestly, I am in awe that I am talking to someone who has been on Pat Flynn's podcast. And for those of you who don't know Pat Flynn, if you're in the insurance industry or not, Pat is the best marketing expert, in my opinion. And Mike negotiated his way on the show. He can tell you about that. I'll let him tell you about that. But how did you do that? How did you do that?
So I was really fortunate, Jim, that I joined. Pat has an online community called SPI Pro. And I joined as one of the kind of founding members early on. And that give as get ethos is my kind of life. That's how I've kind of like lived my life. And I'm very happy with how I've lived that life. And as part of that community, people would ask questions in the community and I'd respond with my ideas and thoughts and experiences. And that's just my way of working. I always try and help others. And Pat's team kind of caught on to that and they asked a few questions and I helped them with some ideas and they helped me. And then Pat had this idea about doing something called Training Fridays on SPI.
Because up until that point, he was doing all the shows himself.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. Either himself or with guests, mainly with himself. And he reached out and said, Mike, we're going to try this as an experiment. Would you be the first guest to run the Training Friday? on SPI podcast. And I went, yeah, where do I sign up? Because it was an amazing privilege and honor to do that. And the challenge was, Pat said, you're going to be giving a podcast episode, 20 minutes, half an hour, where you're going to try and train them to do something, but you'll have no feedback from the audience at all. And so it was like, wow, how am I going to do that? And so I had to work out a way of being natural on the podcast, but having a script of some kind. Otherwise, it would just be a long, rambling discussion. And I think I'll ask you, Jim, you listened to it. What did you think of the way it was structured?
I thought it was very clear, concise. I was able to, I was out walking my dog when I was listening to it. And when I came back, I made note of the timestamp of where things started to really get interesting for me. And I went back and I started making notes, and there were several steps that you gave, and I wrote them down. And, you know, at the time I had a very specific thing that I was trying to think about. How could I apply this negotiating tactic to? And you did a phenomenal job. So
thank you.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting is that an old friend of mine years ago said that, you know, something simple is normally born out of something very complex. You only understand the simplicity when you've gone through the complexity. And that kind of negotiation framework, I boiled that down over 20 years of negotiating deals into something simple that anyone can follow, and it will always give them a better outcome than not preparing.
Yeah.
And that's really important.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to dig into that in a second. Before we get into that, and I want you to be able to talk about your company, Piscari, and you have the best name for a product I've ever heard. It's called Higgle, Higgle, Higgle.
That's right.
So at some point, weave that in. But for you, Mike, what was the moment? Was there like a pivotal moment in your career where you realized, you know what? I think I want my superpower to be negotiating. How did that come about?
Yeah, so I've always been fascinated by negotiation as a kind of topic and as a skill. And I mean, my background, I've been in large-scale consulting businesses where you negotiate big kind of multi-million pound deals. I've been an entrepreneur, negotiating my own deals. I bought my own company off some amazing guys that were selling their business. And all of that requires negotiation skills, but I didn't have anything formal. I'm a process guy. I like process, templates, discipline, repeatability. And so I was thinking, okay, there must be a better way of doing this. And I went on a course, which was brilliant. I mean, I teach negotiation skills to clients, but where I learned my kind of some of the structure was on Harvard's course. So I went to the Harvard Pond course, which is called the Program on Negotiation Skills. It's a brilliant, brilliant program. It was expensive, but brilliant. And a guy called William Ury was one of the lecturers. And William Ury wrote a brilliant book with Roger Fisher called Getting to Yes. So
I've heard of that. Yeah.
A takeaway for all your listeners. If you read no other book on negotiation apart from the Higgle book, read Getting to Yes by William Ury and Roger Fisher. It's a really simple, plain read. You'll read it in 2 hours, 3 hours. And it's a brilliant, brilliant book about negotiation and how negotiation works.
Yeah.
And it triggered in me this kind of fire of, I'd love to do that as a kind of career.
Yeah.
That was about 20 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. 18, 20 years ago. Yeah. And ever since then, I've been refining my skill and, reading books and developing methodologies and collecting all sorts of articles. And then, recently, about a year ago, I thought, why don't I codify this? Why don't I turn it into a framework that anyone can follow? There's a myth, Jim, in negotiation. There's a huge myth. And this is around, if you talk to 10 people about negotiators and, are you a good negotiator? They say, oh, no, I'm really not very good. I'm not a natural. I've seen people and they're just like brilliant on their feet. The myth is anyone can be a 10 times better negotiator by doing one simple thing. Prepare. Just prepare.
Yeah.
80% of the value in a negotiation is in the preparation.
Yeah.
The actual discussion is only 20%. Because what happens is the more you prepare, the more you think it through, the more prepared your mind is. So when you ask me a difficult question, or you get angry, or you don't understand something, I can educate. I can try and create more value. I can introduce different variables because I'm prepared. I've thought it through. I say to my son, Leo is kind of like 9.5, and I say, the inquiring mind is really important. Just being curious and thinking about things and writing things down, the act of doing that will make you more prepared and you'll learn more.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I wrote it down and we turned it into a book. My wife's a marketer by training, ran her own agency, and she branded it. She said, let's call it the Higgle book.
Why Higgle?
So Higgle is an ancient word. There's various definitions, but it's broadly about, it was kind of, some people call it haggling, but my version of negotiation is, it's not a haggle. It's more sophisticated than that, but it's about two parties coming together to agree on something that they need to jointly agree on. And it's about that. How do you find a way of getting to an agreement? So I'll give your listeners one other very simple tip. Little hard to apply, but it's really simple as an idea. Let's say you and me are thinking about negotiation, and it might be around, maybe I'm going to be a partner with you. So you and your insurance business, we're going to partner up because I've got a marketing business maybe.
Yeah.
Before we sit down and start talking, I'm going to do some preparation. When I'm preparing, I'm going to think, what are the objective criteria by which me and Jim could say this is a good deal? The objective criteria. I'm going to send that to Jim. Here's my idea. I think an objective criteria would be that the negotiation has to enable both of us to build a long-term relationship that grows both our businesses. Has to have benefit to both of us. Would that be a good objective criteria?
Absolutely.
I mean, you probably go, yeah, why not? Of course.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another one might be, where we invest in marketing, we kind of have to co-invest. It's not one of us, not the other. We have to co-invest in marketing. Would that be another good objective criteria?
Sure. Makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. So now when we start negotiating, if we start to go off track, we can both draw each other back to, does this really meet the criteria of building a long-term relationship together? No. Does it meet the criteria of jointly co-investing in marketing? No. So it calms things down, draws you back to some criteria, and allows you to both negotiate a better deal.
And you can get creative around how you get back to that point. That makes a lot of sense because it becomes sort of a litmus test for, is this what we both said? We talk about this a lot in our company in terms of accountability. We let's talk about just with our own insurance agents or anybody that's working with us. We say, we agree that these are your roles and responsibilities. If you come work with us, does this list look like something that you would agree that makes sense for you to do for us in exchange for us paying you? Yes. Okay. Exactly. Great. Wonderful. At one point in time, we both had expectations and we turned them into an agreement. It's just like, I love my son, but like he has a cell phone contract, right? In order to have his cell phone, he had to sign a contract for things that at one point in time, we both agreed were great expectations that we could both live up to.
Correct.
And I love my son, but last week he violated one of those agreements. And I just very simply said, instead of getting mad, he said he came in my room because he keeps his phone in my room, to charge it. He said, "Can I have my phone?" I said, "No, you can't." He said, "Oh." I said, "Well, you violated one of the one of our agreements."
Yeah, exactly.
Mike, I would not want to be one of your children. I'm sure Leo is a fine, upstanding young man, young men, but having a father that knows how to professionally negotiate, I would be terrified. I bet you drove your parents crazy, like negotiating different things with them, didn't you?
It's always harder with our own families, isn't it? It's always difficult. I mean,
Yeah.
and actually it's another great point about with our families. Negotiation applies to anything, not just our businesses, but the way
Sure.
that we deal with our families and that we come to agreements. One of the golden rules of negotiation is emotions got no place at the negotiating table.
Yeah.
Emotions will get in the way.
Mm.
It will create a worse deal for both parties. It will cause anxiety, and it will probably shorten your life.
Yeah.
But try and do that with your family. How do you not get emotional? And I don't always, I try, I don't always succeed,
Yeah.
but trying to, and how do you do that? So a tip again for your listeners is if you feel yourself getting anxious in the negotiation, just call a halt. Just say, look, can I have a 5-minute break? Just a water, or walk around the block, and then we'll carry on.
Yeah.
Every negotiator is going to say, yeah, that's fine. Anyone that says no, you need to sit here and keep at it, they're signaling they're just an aggressive negotiator.
Yeah.
That's a bad person to negotiate with.
And have you found yourself in situations like that
Oh,
in your
absolutely.
career? Yeah.
Oh, my word. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, yeah, definitely. So I've negotiated with banks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that causes anxiety for
Yeah.
sure. But anxiety doesn't get you anywhere. You know, the idea that I was talking to some clients last week about this, the idea that on the other side, a buyer is going to be irrational, harm themselves and the deal because their emotions been kind of like stabbed. That's not going to happen. You know,
Yeah.
buyers in big organizations, procurement people, yeah, we're trained negotiators. We're trained to keep calm. We're trained to watch for signals. We're trained to, you know, sadly, a lot, you know, gain more of the pie than our counterparty. So it's carving up of the pie rather than making the pie bigger.
Right.
But when I was negotiating on behalf of big private equity firms, so I was a managing partner at a big consulting firm. I'm not anymore. I'm independent.
Okay.
But when I was back then,
Yeah.
I was trained. I train our people, and you're trained to be calm, collected, prepared, use the tools, because that's what gets the best deal.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Anxiety is a killer of deals. It's a real killer. If you feel anxious walking into a negotiation, take a breath, walk around the block, calm yourself down, calm your nerves, have an opening script. The objective criteria are a great way of reducing anxiety.
That makes a lot of sense. So how can insurance agents put this into place or into play when they're maybe working with an insurance carrier trying to procure coverage for their clients, and maybe it's a matter of the insurance carrier is, I don't know, maybe seems to be unwilling to budge on either, you know, offering up a particular coverage or more coverage or better price or whatnot. What tips or advice could you give to insurance agents in a situation like that?
So, a great way of doing that is it requires preparation again.
Mm-hmm.
When you walk into the carrier and you're representing a client or a group of clients, if you're negotiating on behalf of a company insurance policy, present options and say to the carrier, look, my client's needs, that there are 3 types of kind of like options here that would, all of them would address their needs, but in different ways, but they will attract a different premium. So option 1, what always happens is option 1, no one wants. Option 3, way too expensive. Option 2 is what we all want.
Yeah.
Present those 3 options. The options have coverage elements in them. They have payment terms. They have payment plans. They have all sorts of things in them.
Right.
Structure those 3 options, put them in front of the carrier and say, look, this is kind of where we're coming from. This is what we want out of this kind of negotiation. Can you match any of these 3? And they'll go, well, option 1, we rarely do that because no one ever buys it. So we don't tend to write policies that look like option 1. Yeah. Option 3, we do. If your client's interested, we definitely do option 3. And I'd be going, yeah, but what's the price? And they
Yeah.
go, it's, $5,000 a quarter. And I'm like, no, that's not going to work, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, fine. Option two, what do you do in option two? And they'd say, so option two is $1,000 a month, say.
Yeah.
And I'd go, if I took out this bit of coverage, what does that do to the premium? And they'd go, well, we don't do that. And I'd say, when you say you don't do it, do you never do it? And they go, well, we have done it. Oh, so you do it? Okay. Great. Under what circumstances do you do it normally? Well, when we do it, we do take out this element, but we have to increase the cover in this other area. Okay, what does that look like? Well, it looks like this. What's that kind of premium? Well, it looks like this. Okay. And you don't say, that's it. It's like, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Negotiation is all about exploring options and finding out the art of the possible. And that language of, do you never do it?
That's what I was,
we have done it.
Yeah.
Oh, you have done it. Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's one a lot of people miss. It just the simple act of asking a question in a very powerful one, because I think agents hear that all the time. Well, we don't do that. We don't do that for this class of business. We would never do that for a roofer. Oh, like as in never have, or that's brilliant.
Or would you do it for a carpenter?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we do it for a carpenter. Oh.
Yeah.
Why is that? What's different?
Yeah.
Well, carpenters don't tend to be on roofs all day.
Falling off.
Oh, okay. Does it depend upon what size buildings the roofer works on? Well, yeah, if they work on 3-story buildings, we've got a plan for that. But if they work on multi-story buildings above 5 floors, there's more risk. Right. My roofer only works on residential, which is only 3 floors. And you open up all of these options.
Yeah.
Asking why, there's a great, I'm a management consultant by training for many, many years. There's a great tool. We used to use all sorts of tools as consultants to help clients solve problems. Yeah. There's a tool called the 5 whys. So we start off with, I'd like this kind of coverage. And the insurance carrier says, we don't do that. Why is that? Well, because the risk is too high. Why is the risk too high? Well, because they work on buildings of 10 floors and above. So why does that increase your risk? And they're like, well, because they fall off. How often do they fall off? Well, once every 100 years. Okay. Is there a way that you do policies for other kinds of roofers that have different kind of coverage and different premiums? Yes, there are. Why do you offer that? The 5 whys, as you drill down, you get to a point whereby there's no more why. You notice when I taught, you get to a point when it's like, there are no more whys, we've reached the answer.
Right.
And it was about root cause analysis. So back in the day, I was an engineer. We'd always be looking for what's the root cause of this problem. You have symptoms and you have root causes. Symptom, my leg hurts. I could chop it off. Well, yes, you could chop it off. That is true. Or, why does your leg hurt? Well, I've been sat down for 5 hours. What happens if you get up and walk around? It gets better. Oh, maybe don't sit down for 5 hours.
I love it. I think you could name it the annoying child test. Why? Like, right? Little kids asking why.
You could name it the annoying child test. Exactly.
I love it. There was something we were talking about before we got on air. You called it the learning model. Can you tell me what that is and why that would be important for our audience?
So we're about now probably 25 minutes into the episode, I guess, somewhere around there. Yeah. And if I asked one of your listeners, I met them in the street and they said they'd listened to Jim's show, it was great. And I said to them, what did you remember? They might remember one thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's 3 days after the show. So there was this guy called Hermann Ebbinghaus, and it's called the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve.
Okay.
So I'll just make sure I'll look at my notes again. Yep, it's called the Hermann Ebbinghaus, the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. Okay. And it goes something like this. He was around in the 1850s, 1800s. And he was doing some research, and he was trying to work out why people forget things when they're being taught. And he did a lot of research, and he worked out within 3 days of having listened to something or read something or learned something, 80% of what you'd learned had been forgotten. So he thought, oh, how could I reduce that forgetting? And he worked out, if after learning something, you do one thing, you write some notes, and then 3 days later, you come back to your notes and you review them, that alone improved retention. Then he went, what about you review your notes? So I'll say to your listeners, here's something you can do to improve your memory about what we've talked about.
Yeah.
After the episode, when you get to work, when you stop walking the dog, when you've got home, write down a few notes on a piece of paper. Take one thing that we've said, only one, don't make it too difficult, and apply it in the next 3 days. When you've done that, come back to your notes, reread them, pick something else, do the same again.
Yeah.
Within 2 weeks, you'll have done about 5 things.
Yeah.
And your retention and your knowledge and your skill will have improved.
Skill. I was actually thinking you've created a lifelong skill at that point.
Yeah, correct.
Because you've truly learned it. It's not just, well, I heard about it. And I mean, we were talking about Pat Flynn before, right?
Yeah.
There's so many things that I've learned from him, but the things that have really stuck, you're right. I've made notes. Well, I was saying before, like I took notes on your show, on your episode with him. I've made notes, and then I've gone back and I've maybe applied one thing, and sometimes maybe I just stop there, but it is a lot more fulfilling to have done that. And I think about all the trade shows or things that we go to, and we're pumped up. People are on stage. We're excited. They're excited. You got some Tony Robbins type, person that's just, oh, I'm so pumped up. And then you leave, and 3 days later, you're back to where you were before.
That's right.
Because you didn't really apply anything. You just got jazzed up and you learned it for a minute and then forgot it.
The company name, Piscari, it was created by my wife, this kind of brilliant, talented marketer that she is. Piscari means to teach to fish.
I was thinking it sounded like fish. Yeah. Yeah.
My raison d'etre, my reason for being is if I can transfer the knowledge and skills that I have to someone else and they can learn to apply them, they won't need me. They'll be able to do it themselves. It's a lifelong skill. Negotiation is a lifetime skill that if you learn it, will carry you very far in all sorts of aspects of your life. So my job is to teach others to help themselves, to teach to fish.
I love it. So what does Higgle do then for people? How does that work?
So Higgle's it's a straightforward 4-step process about how to negotiate anything. So I'll run you through the 4 steps kind of quickly and then give a bit of a summary. Sure. Step 1. So this is about preparation. So step 1, context. What's the context of the deal? Objectives. What are your objectives? What are their objectives? You'll make some assumptions about their objectives, but you've got a starting point. Objective criteria. What objective criteria are we going to use to agree this is a fair deal for both parties? And then BATNA, the William Ury book on getting to yes, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. If we can't agree, what are we going to do? Your BATNA, their BATNA. That's step 1. Step 2, timelines. How long is this thing going to take? I think it will take 8 weeks. There are 4 stages over the 8 weeks, and there are 4 milestones. There's negotiate terms, there's write it into a contract, there's execute the contract, and then there's mobilize our resources to get something done. Okay. When you write that down, send it to your counterparty. I think it's 8 weeks. I think there's 4 stages. There's 4 milestones. Do you agree? They'll write back and go, that's interesting. Here's my comments. You've now got a framework to hold each other accountable. Step 3, negotiation variables. So write down, brainstorm, what variables are we going to negotiate around? So for example, there's always price. payment terms,
Mm-hmm.
length of contract, termination rights,
Mm-hmm.
intellectual property. That's 5 before we start.
Yeah.
Then for each of those 5, do something really simple. Get a piece of paper, write the 5 down. On the right-hand side of the page, write down your best outcome, the best outcome you could possibly get. On the left-hand side of the page, write down the least acceptable outcome, the thing that you'd accept but you really don't want.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've got a range.
Okay.
And then as one thing moves down, something else has to move up.
Okay.
I don't believe in discounts. I believe in trading one thing for another.
Yeah.
I might agree with you to reduce the price if we can reduce the scope, or you can give me a marketing case study, or we can do something else on payment terms. I'm trading variables all the time.
Yeah. Or as my father used to say all the time, the deal has to be fair for both parties at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then step 4, enter the negotiation, write down the issues. You'll have things I haven't thought about. You'll have objections. You'll have issues. Write them down, resolve them, send them back to your counterparty, make sure they agree they've been resolved, and move on. And that's it. 4 steps to negotiate any deal better every time.
And this is what you've put into practice and has turned into your superpower.
Correct.
So how can people get a hold of this if they want to dig into that deeper?
So they can go and buy the book. So if they go to Higgle, Higgle.piscari, piscari.com.
Awesome. Higgle.piscari.com. Love it.
That's it.
And we'll put that in the show notes too. That is brilliant. I love it. Mike, are you ready? And I can come back. I want to come back at the end and kind of ask you for an even bigger summary, but or something to leave with folks. But a quick rapid fire round. You ready? Okay. One piece of technology that you absolutely cannot live without.
Calendly.
Calendly. Yes. Yes. When did you discover it?
Oh, yeah. My word. About 2 years ago. Amazing.
Yeah.
Like could not run my business without it. Not possible.
I honestly, I have my entire life, especially my business life, has honestly become more structured and manageable because of it. So tell listeners, if they're not familiar, what does that do?
Brilliant piece of technology. So I use Outlook. So I'm a Microsoft Outlook user. So I have Outlook on my desktop. And in the old days, I'd have a PA or a VA, and their job would be to book meetings. So people would email in and they'd look at my diary, and then their diary wouldn't match. And then I'd pay a lot of money for my VA to book a meeting with it, which is basically admin work. They'd get bored and it would cost us money. Calendly, really simple. I connect my calendar to Calendly as a SaaS-based product, and I just send someone a link that says, book a meeting with me. It's a 30-minute meeting, and it opens up all the slots, and they just book in a meeting. And in mine, I add in Zoom, so it gives you the Zoom link to the meeting.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm wow.
And when it syncs with your calendar, whatever you already have on there that's blocked out for time that you're not available, it won't even show that as an option.
No.
So it reduces all the back and forth.
They just see all of the open slots. That's it.
Yeah. Choose the time that works best for you.
Choose the time that works best for you. Brilliant.
Yeah.
And so I've set up a 30-minute meeting, a 45-minute meeting, a 2-hour workshop. Depending on who I'm talking to, I send different meeting types. It's brilliant.
I do the same thing. I even have one for a breakfast or lunch meeting. And then depending on that versus a Zoom meeting, which Zoom, if I'm already at my computer, all I have to do is log in. If it's going to take me time to drive to the breakfast location and then have time to drive back, I build in a buffer of time into that particular type of meeting. Yeah. It's a brilliant piece of software. You're right.
Right.
That's fantastic. What's one book that you're reading right now, or a book that you just love that you want to share with people? And I know you shared one already. I don't know if you're going to share the same one again.
So there's another book which it plays into the whole negotiation area as well. It's called Influence by
Mhm.
Cialdini.
Someone
Cialdini, I think his name is.
Yeah, I heard that. Somebody recommended that recently too.
It's amazing.
Influence. Yeah.
It's The Power of Influence, written, I think, 10, 15 years ago. Amazing book. Amazing book.
Yeah.
Like amazing stories about how in a restaurant your server can influence the scale of tip based
Yeah.
upon how and when they give you the treat.
Yeah.
It's remarkable.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
It's
I
really
love
good.
I
It's a
love the
really
psychology of
fascinating
things
read.
like that.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And another thing they talk about is the power of authority. If you see someone in the street in a uniform of any kind, you're far more likely to take instruction from them than you
Mhm.
are without a uniform.
Yeah.
Why do we do that? But we
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. We're conditioned. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's cool. Influence. Okay. Love it. Love it. I don't know if you have one, but a story of a time when you helped a client get something that they needed.
So part of the main part of what I do is clients come to me with a problem
Mm-hmm.
which they've run out of experience about how to solve, and
Mm-hmm.
they reach out to me because I've got negotiation and procurement experience.
Yeah.
So all the time, I mean, at the moment, I've got 7 live clients, all of which have got different types of problems that I'm
Yeah.
helping them solve.
Yeah.
So I was taught, so another book, by the way.
Yeah.
So I was
Yeah.
taught back in the day. So there's a book called The Trusted Advisor. Now, in the insurance world, this is probably quite a valuable book because this is all about how do clients start to trust you to
Mm.
the extent whereby you're the first person they call, irrespective of the problem. So it's not an insurance problem, it's
Yeah.
something else in their life. But they trust you so much and they trust your advice, they call you and say, "Hey, Jim, I've got this kind of problem. It's not about insurance, but
Yeah.
something weird's going on with one of my business partners. I'd just like your view. Just be
Yeah.
great to get your advice."
Yeah.
Getting to that status as trusted advisor, really hard.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of what I aspire to be always with my clients is the trusted advisor. I
Yeah.
say to them, ring me. They say, but we haven't got a scoping mechanism and a pricing mechanism for that. I say, doesn't matter. Ring me. Call me.
You know, you immediately made me think of a past guest that we've had on the show, Katie Coleman. She's actually my financial advisor, but
All right.
she just she is that person for me that outside of my business that I would
That's
call
right.
in a heartbeat,
Yep.
with anything, and she often
Yep.
has helped me, and she'll ping me sometimes and just say, "How you doing? Everything
Yeah.
okay? Anything I can help you with, business or
Yep.
otherwise?" Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. That's what I try and do. I
yeah.
try and be the trusted advisor to my clients. If I don't know how
Well,
to solve it, I'll point them to someone who can.
yeah, and talk about adding value, right? I mean, that's one way to add value before you ask for anything in return. Is what can I do to serve you? You know,
So a simple
um,
thing out of that book, there's a very simple equation. I'm an engineer by training. I like equations.
yeah,
Um, how do you build trust with someone? And people go, well, I sit down for coffee and get to know them and share stories. And it's like, yeah, that's one way. There's other ways. So trust equals credibility
mm,
plus professional intimacy, getting to know someone,
mm-hmm,
divided by risk.
hmm,
So if I'm trying to build trust with you, if I can't start with building a relationship with you because I don't see you, you're in the States, I'm in the UK.
yeah,
What I might start with is credibility, my deep domain expertise in negotiation. You find it interesting, so we start to talk about it. I might start with risk. How can I reduce your risk of something going wrong? How can I help or educate or inform you about something that would help reduce the risk in your life or in your business? So you've got 3 ways that you can build trust with people, not just one.
Yeah. It's brilliant.
And everyone goes to the relationship. That's the only thing they think about.
Yeah.
And the book talks about there are many ways to build trust.
Yeah.
And you start in different points depending upon who the person is and how well you know them and where you're going with that relationship. So yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. That's beautiful. Thank you. What's one final piece of advice that you would leave our listeners with?
So around negotiation, the key thing is preparation. Preparation's the key to all negotiations. It calms the mind, reduces anxiety, improves your thinking, and delivers a better outcome. Just sit down, even without templates, even with just a piece of paper, and that kind of 4 steps in your head. What are the objectives? What are the timelines? What kind of variables have we got? What are the issues? Even just that. Great work done by, I think it's called Charlie Munger, which is Warren Buffett's kind of business partner. Now, you want to look at financially successful people. They probably qualify as quite successful. Probably.
Yeah.
Charlie Munger's a big fan of mental models. We need mental models to help us think through problems. People that don't have mental models can't repeat things. They might have a great success one day on something, but it's not repeatable. A mental model helps you do things repeatably. Have a 4-step process, write things down, keep on repeating it. You'll get better at it.
That makes sense. Yeah. I love it. All right. So there's one other question I'm going to ask you. You might not have been prepared for this. And quite honestly, I'm about to find out if this is really going to work or not. But
good.
If you had the choice right now between eating a hot bowl of soup or gourmet marshmallows and hot chocolate, which would you choose?
Soup.
I figured you were going to say that. What kind?
So I would probably go for a chicken soup.
Chicken soup. Chicken noodle?
A chicken broth noodle soup would be perfect.
Nice. So what I love to do for our guests is send them soup, if they choose soup, from a company called
really
called Spoonful of Comfort. And where I don't know if this is going to work is I've never shipped overseas with them. So I'm about to find out if this is going to work. So if it doesn't, I will figure something else out.
So tell you what, could you, Jim, rather than sending it to me, could you send it to the Red Cross effectively? Maybe it's a donation for the Ukrainian appeal. That would be, I'd love that.
I would love to do that.
That would be great. That would make me very, very happy.
Yeah. Nothing would make me happier if that's what you want. And yeah, as we're recording this, still unbelievable devastation going on in Ukraine right now. So,
exactly.
God help
everything we can do to help, any small bit we can do to help, that would be great.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Oh, I'm so glad I asked.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Love it. Okay. So one last question, Mike, where can people go to find more about you or get in touch with you or learn more about Higgle? Every time I say Higgle, I just want to giggle. Like, Higgle.
Good. So the two best places to find out more about me and what we do. One is our website, just piscari.com, piscari.com, or just go onto LinkedIn. You'll find me on LinkedIn, Mikelander on LinkedIn, and then connect with me there.
Awesome. Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure. Stick around for 1 second afterwards for me, but fantastic to have you on the show today. Thank you very much, sir.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I've really enjoyed this, Jim. It's been a great conversation.
Absolutely. Folks, until next time, grow big or go home. Take care.